I'm not going to use the slides today. I'm not going to use the slides today because I believe all of you, are come familiar with all the topics which we so far discussed, and so this will be very, very easier for you. And you can feel comfortable to interact with me throughout the session, because for the simple reason I am not going to use the slides. It's a whiteboard. Is my whiteboard visible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And 15 minutes, I want all of you to gain, 45 minutes, I want all of you to gain a lot of clarity, because in my opinion, 90% of the black belt do not know the difference between CpCpk and PpPpk. You should not be one among the 90%, you should come onto the other side, right? You should be on the 10%. So for that, can you please tell me the difference? Is there a difference that exists between capability and performance? Come on. Is there a difference that exists between and performance?
So this is short-term study.
Come again?
Long-term study, short-term study, CpCpk and PpPpk.
Okay. Long-term, short-term study.
Just by English, it is capability is what is inside and performance is what is delivered.
Very good. Capability is what you are actually capable of, what you already possess, right? What you exactly possess. But it doesn't mean that you can deliver what you possess, right? I might know many things, but what do I deliver matters to you. Same way, the capability and the performance can be different. Your CpCpk measures the capability, right? CpCpk measures the capability. Let me write it for you. CpCpk is a measure of capability. And then what is PpPpk? PpPpk.
Performance.
Very good. It's a
measure
of performance. Now can one of you tell me which can be higher? Whether the capability will be higher or performance will be higher?
I'm not sure, but generally capability will be higher, performance will be lower, is my understanding.
Generally, capability will be higher. Only if you have, then you can give, isn't it? If you don't even have, how can you give? So capability is what you have. Performance is what you actually give. So generally capability will be higher, performance will be lower. And now let me put that as a statement for all of you. So the capability is going to be higher than the performance. Very good. Now can one of you tell me why the performance goes down over time? It means the performance in business is generally is lower than the capability. Can you tell me why it is? Why the performance goes down? Come on, keep trying. Nothing wrong in Why the performance is always lower than capability? Come on, guys, what happened? Because over time, defect percentage increases. Can I say like that? Can I say like that? Over time, the defect percentage will increase. Am I correct or not?
Equipment deterioration.
Equipment deterioration. Very good. Over time, defect percentage increases. The reason is correctly mentioned, right? Your equipment deteriorates, right? Equipment deteriorates. Everything deteriorates. The process deteriorates, your people deteriorate, and all possibilities can happen. So, why there is a deterioration? Technically, deterioration is nothing but a variation. Am I right? Because there is a variation, your process deteriorates and then rejection percentage increases, and that's how your performance goes below your capability. Hope all of you understand the logic, what I'm talking. As time passes, equipment deteriorate, materials deteriorate, people deteriorate, process deteriorate, and as a result, performance goes down. Right? You can either consider time as the factor or the demand as the factor. If the demand is more, you run the process several times, even within short time. What will happen? Then also process can deteriorate. Hope all of you understand this, isn't it? Right? Time may be, within 1 week, let's say within 1 week, you produced, several million units. By the time you produce several million units, your equipment will deteriorate. Isn't it? So it is basically that either the time or the demand that makes your performance go below capability. And that is why I want all of you to measure the performance, not the capability. Capability is, what you actually build in the beginning of your production. You have set everything, you purchased raw material and everything you have done, and you are doing a trial run, you are checking your capability. That is only, your capability. What you see on day one is only your capability. But your customer receives your product maybe after 10-15 days, sometimes after a few months. It depends on your production schedule. But what your customer sees is the performance. But what you have seen in the beginning is your capability. So you should measure PpPpk to understand the customer experience with your products. Okay. So what is your learning about the CpCpk? What is the formula? Cp equal to, do you remember the formula? USL minus LSL.
That is 6 sigma.
Very good. Divided by 6 sigma. Divided by 6 sigma. Same will be the formula for PP also. For PP also, the formula is going to be same. If the formula is same, how come the values be different? Because it is the sigma that is going to play here. It is the sigma that is going to play here, right? So the formula is same for Cp and Pp, but sigma is going to be different. When I change the value of sigma, can the value of Cp will change?
Of course, yes.
Of course. If the sigma increases, what will happen to Cp?
Decrease.
Since the sigma over time or over demand, sigma is expected to increase. As a result, Cp will decrease. The decreased value of Cp is nothing but Pp. How many of you understand? The decreased value of Cp is going to be your Pp. But what's the difference between Cp and Pp? The value of sigma is different. The value of sigma you get on day 1. The value of sigma you get on, let's say day 30 or day 60. It's going to be different, right? And if the process is run as it is without any changes, generally sigma will go down. Generally sigma will increase, Generally sigma will increase. Sigma is variation, isn't it? Sigma will increase. As sigma increases, Cp will go down. The reduced value of Cp is called Pp. So it's very important you understand types of sigma. Types of sigma. Can one of you tell me what is sigma? What is sigma?
It's a deviation and variations.
What is sigma? Standard deviation.
The standard deviation, yes.
Standard deviation. Now, I'm going to introduce 3 types of standard deviation to all of you. Within standard deviation. What is the first one? Within standard deviation. And the second one, between standard deviation. And the third one, overall standard deviation. Within standard deviation, between standard deviation, overall standard deviation. To remember, in gauge R&R also we taught you something within variation and between variation. Am I right? In gauge R&R, did we teach within variation and within appraiser variation and between appraiser variation? Did we teach or not?
Yes, repeatability and
Very good.
reproducibility.
within appraiser variation is repeatability, between appraiser variation is reproducibility, and the combined one is overall error. Am I correct? Same way here, you must calculate within standard deviation, between standard deviation, and then if you combine, that will be overall standard deviation. Now, what is this within standard deviation? How to calculate, right? See here, within standard deviation, the formula is R bar divided by D2. Within standard deviation, the formula is R bar by D2. So don't worry about the formula. Formula anyway, Minitab and other things will give you, and our template also will do it for you. But you need to understand what is within standard deviation. Suppose, imagine you are collecting a sample. You are collecting a sample. At a time, you have taken 5 samples. At a time, you have taken 5 samples. Now, can somebody tell me what is the subgroup size I'm talking about?
5, sir.
Subgroup size is 5. Subgroup size 5 means every time you go for data collection, you have to collect 5 samples uncombined. Am I right? And these 5 samples, will it have variation? You have collected the sample at a time. Same time, you have taken 5 samples. All 5 samples from the same process. All the 5 samples are your same product only. But do you still have variation?
Yes, will be there. 1 to 1 will be there.
That is called within standard deviation. That is called within batch variation. That is called within batch variation. You can measure the within batch variation using this within standard deviation. How many of you understand what I'm talking right now? All of you understand? See, if you are not comfortable, immediately tell me, right? I don't want to make you confused with the terms. This is all very easier. Only thing is you must follow the steps. Is it clear to all of you?
Yes, sir. I think once we complete all these 3, it will be we can clearly differentiate what is that. It will be good.
Okay. So within batch variation, you have taken 5 samples. Using 5 sample means 5 data points you have. With the 5 data points, if you calculate standard deviation, that is called within standard deviation. Generally, whenever the number of data is less than 8, we don't use sigma. We don't calculate standard deviation. We calculate range. That is why the formula is R bar by D2. Do you all understand why R bar is coming here? Whenever the number of data is less, range should be used instead of standard deviation. Whenever the data contains minimum 8 samples, 8 and above, right? Maybe above 8 you can say. That is why in X bar R chart also, for a subgroup size of 5, we plotted X bar R chart. When the subgroup size becomes 8 and above 8, what is the chart recommended? X bar S chart. So whenever your subgroup size is less than or equal to 8, calculate the range, then calculate the R bar, then the statistical constant D2 is there. Divided by statistical constant D2, that will give you the standard deviation, the estimated standard deviation. All right. If you use this standard deviation, the resulting value is the resulting value is within capability. The resulting value is within capability, or CP, simply CP. Good. And now I want you to now correct so many subgroup. Subgroup number 1, how many samples you had? 5. Subgroup number 2, you will have another 5. Subgroup number 3, you will have another 5. Subgroup number 4, you will have another 5. Subgroup number 5, it goes like this. You understand? You collect every shift. First shift, you collected 1 subgroup, 5 sample. Second shift, you collected 5 samples. Subgroup number 2, it keeps on going. Now, under subgroup 1, how many data you have under subgroup 1?
5.
Very good. 5. And again, subgroup number 2, you will have 5 data. It goes like this. Right? It keeps on going like this. And for each subgroup, each sample of 5, will you be able to calculate the average, which is X bar? Am I right? All of you understand? Follow me.
Yes, yes.
X bar 1, X bar 2, X bar 3. What is X bar? Average of the 5 data. The average of the 5 data. Suppose if the number of subgroups are, let us say you collected data for 10 days, then you have 10 subgroups. Then you have 10 averages. You have 10 averages. Can you calculate the standard deviation using the 10 averages? Possible? No.
Yes, yes.
That is called between
Standard
standard. That is called between standard deviation, which is nothing but standard deviation of subgroup averages. Clear?
Yes.
Now, if you use this standard deviation and calculate the CP, that is called
Between standard deviation.
that is called between
Standard deviation.
Use this standard deviation in your CP value formula. What is CP formula? USL minus LSL divided by 6 times sigma, right? But now capability, the resulting CP value is called between capability. You understand now CP itself I am dividing into 2. Within CP and between CP. Within CP and between CP. When I use within standard deviation, I get within capability. When I use between standard deviation, I get between capability. We already spoke about this in X bar R chart. What is within batch variation? What is between batch variation? Within a batch, you took 5 samples. This 5 sample is going to represent everything you have produced in the shift. You have produced 1,000 units in the shift. If the within batch variation is more, it simply means there is going to be a lot of variation in the 1,000 units you produced in that shift. So customer can reject so many products from that particular shift. So you have to do a 100% audit. That is what you are within standard. That is why within standard deviation should be low. When between standard deviation is low, what you produced in the first shift and what you are producing in the second shift and what you are going to produce in the third shift and so on are going to have same characteristics. Both are important for the quality. Am I right?
Yes.
Within batch variation should be low, between batch variation should be low. All right. So you have understood 2 things now. One is within batch variation. Another one is between batch variation. What is required is between batch variation should be low, and then within batch variation should also be low. If both are low, then you can you are sure that your customer experience is going to be better. All right. But what happened? Now, whatever we discussed so far are to predict the short-term capability. You collected sample for 10 days. You calculated within batch variation. You calculated between. You calculated within batch variation. You calculated between batch variation, and you calculated CP also. And you are happy with the value because your CP is more than 1.67. Your CP is more than 1.67. But how many days you conducted the study? You conducted the study for, generally, can one of you tell me, generally how many days you conduct the study to calculate CP? You finish the CPK. Okay? Come on, please tell me.
Sir, but for example, in our industry of automotive industry, like every shift, there will be a data will be collected. For example, we are producing more than 1,000 cars. So we put 30 values inside the graph. It will be auto-generated. But every day, every shift, it will happen.
Every day, every shift, you collect the data and then you monitor CP, right?
Yes, it will be plotted to the graph and it will
Very good.
give us.
So your approach is good. That means, you just don't decide everything based on just, study conducted on the first day. Process is going to deteriorate. So you are keeping an eye on the CP. Very good. Good approach. Actually, every company should do like that. That's a good approach. At the same time, suppose you wanted to predict how your outputs are going to be after 3 months from now. So far you have data, data which you used for calculating the CP. And now let me come to this example. Let us say subgroup 5, So let me say subgroup, how many subgroups here I have? 5 subgroups. See here, subgroup 1, subgroup 2, subgroup 3, subgroup 4, subgroup 5. 5 subgroup. Each subgroup, how many data you have? 5 each. 5 each. So 5 data into 5 subgroup. Totally, how many data you have in total?
25.
Very good. 25 data points you will have. Is it possible to calculate a standard deviation using all the 25 data?
Yes.
That is called overall standard deviation. Standard deviation using all data. All of you understand what is overall standard deviation? Yes?
Yes.
If you use the overall standard deviation, that is nothing but PpPp. Simple. If you use overall standard deviation, the resulting capability is Pp. Now, please note the overall standard deviation will be higher than your between standard deviation and within standard deviation. Do you agree? Do you agree? Your overall standard deviation will be definitely higher than between standard deviation and between standard deviation. So you can use the overall standard deviation as the estimate of performance. In order to understand the estimate of performance, you can use overall standard deviation. How many of you now understand the difference between within standard deviation, between standard deviation, and overall standard deviation? Is that clear? If you understand the difference between within standard deviation, between standard deviation, and overall standard deviation, you know the difference between CpPpk and PpPp. How many of you understood? Or any doubts you ask me? All of you
Sir,
understand?
yeah, for me, understand, sir. Only one point, like to calculate this overall standard deviation, is there is any like rule that we have to take last 5 days or last 1 month, something like that? Any size is there?
No, actually, the rule is.
I'll come.
Yeah. Yes,
I'll
sir.
come. Please note, in order to find out the standard deviation, first of all, you have to arrange the data. Right?
Yes,
only if you arrange the data in an ascending order or descending order, and then only you can calculate this normal distribution characteristics. Okay?
Yes, sir.
You take a period, take the data, and then arrange it.
Right? No, sir, that is clear. I'm saying that in terms of calculating the performance, we have to calculate the overall standard deviation.
Yes.
But for example, to calculate the overall standard deviation, here we have taken 25 data, which has came from 5 different subgroups. Is there is any limitation that
yes. I'll answer this. I'll answer this.
Once again, let me tell you here, all the 3 are very important. Merely taking the overall standard performance will not give you correct data. Will not give you because suppose I am scoring 0 mark now. I am scoring 100 marks tomorrow. What is my average? 50 marks. So
I will answer this question. I'll answer this question. See here, you are worried about the number of data, right?
Yes, sir. Like to calculate the performance, is there is any standard we have to follow?
See, the longer the better. Please understand. Data collection procedure needs to be longer the better, because now you are trying to understand your long-term capability. That is what we are calling as PP. That is what we call it as performance, isn't it? So the longer the better. At the same time, you can't keep it so long and then you can't collect data for 6 months and all. Now let us imagine a situation to get the answer for the question. Imagine you have 2 suppliers. Supplier number 1, supplier number 2. Who is supplying the raw material? Now tell me, subgroup number 1, subgroup number 2, subgroup number 3, subgroup number 4, subgroup number 5. You have collected data continuously 5 shifts.
Okay.
Now, is there a chance to use the material you have received from both supplier, or do you think continuously 5 shifts you have used only, you have consumed only the material received from supplier 1?
Both, it will be combined usually.
If it is combined, then your data is sufficient.
Okay.
If you have not combined, wait till your business starts consuming the raw material of supplier 2 also. You know why?
Okay. Understood. The variations will be there.
Supplier is also a source of information, so source of variation. The material I receive from supplier 1 may be different from the quality of material I may receive from supplier 2. This will also come into play. Allow the possible sources of variation to come into play in your process, so that what will happen? The overall standard deviation will increase. If you limit your study only with the raw material supplied by supplier 1, then it may not give the real picture of the performance which you are going to get. Point? So the
Yes, sir.
plan has to be considered in such a way that all possible sources of variation is allowed to play. Got it? All right. And now, yes. So good question, very good question. So we were talking about supplier 1 and supplier 2. So if suppose let me write it like this: subgroup 1 to subgroup 5. 5 days you have used supplier raw material of supplier 1. Then 6th day onwards, subgroup 6 to subgroup 10. This is supplied by supplier 2. Now both suppliers materials are there in the process, and by the time 10 days are gone, within the 10 days, so many challenges you could have faced. First 3 days, one operator could have run the machine. Next 3 days, another operator could have run the machine because he was on leave. Do you understand my point? All possibilities comes into picture. Then, this 10 days of data can better estimate your performance, right? Use the 10 days of data to calculate your PpPpk, to calculate a standard deviation, and then calculate and then go for the calculation of PP and PPK. Okay, so let me now take you through the slide mode, presentation mode. If there are any questions,